Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer podcast. I am your host, Andrew, and we've got the whole crew back this week. Jason and Joe are both in the house with us tonight. Guys, how are you doing? Joe, welcome back from vacation, bud. Was it a good time?
It was a good time. I'm glad to be back, but certainly missed all the action last week. So it's good to be back.
We're glad you're back. The pictures from Comiskey looked absolutely phenomenal, man. It looked like that was a good time, and you got to see one of the best pitchers in the game pitch. So great bonus there.
Yeah, AL Cy Young, man. I'm telling you.
Wouldn't surprise me. Honestly, dude's been pitching out of his mind. Jason, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Started a new shift at work here, so doing 4 9s and a half day. So today was the first of the 9s, so feeling good so far, but loving baseball lately, especially from the Philadelphia standpoint, at least since the Cubs series. I definitely think, Joe, that the Cubs series kind of woke them up for the second half.
Happy to help.
Yeah, that was a good series for the Cubs, not so much for the Phillies. Kind of like the entire week last week for Atlanta. So speaking of bad weeks, Joe, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, on the way out to Indiana and Chicago, we stopped in Akron to visit some old family friends, and the Aaron Cruikshank at Acronym Brewery there in Akron. I'm drinking it's anything but Corona, or ABC for short. So it's a Mexican lager with lime and sea salt in it. I'm digging it. They did it as like a Cinco de Mayo beer, and now it's like their top mover. So
that sounds really good, actually. Not gonna lie, I'd love to get my hands on some of that. Jason, how about you?
Yeah, so tonight I'm going away from the beer because I saw this at Wise. It's a Stewart's. They're like one of my favorite root beers, the Stewart's root beer, but they actually have a black cherry spiked seltzer, and it is very tasty. It is not overly seltzerly like a White Claw or something like that. It has really just good, solid black cherry flavor.
So it doesn't taste like TV static. Well, after the rough week Atlanta had, I have a collection of 4 different beers tonight, 3 of which are notably sour because of the wonderful week they had. We will be starting off from Dogfish Head, the Sea Quench Ale. It's a nice session sour. I've had this one a couple times. Really, really good. Lots of lime sea salt flavor. Then we're going to be going on to the Vicious Hook Fruit Punch Sour. I've actually never had this one. This is from Flying Dog, so I'm excited to give this one a try. Then I had this for the first time last night, the Razza Squeeze. It's from Trogs. It's a lime raspberry, more of a tart than a sour. My wife thinks it was very sour. I think it's more of a tart. Very good, though, as well, because Trogs doesn't make bad beer. And to round off the night, we're going away from the sour just slightly to a Cider Boys Strawberry Magic. That's the apple strawberry hard cider, because I also realized I haven't had any cider this summer, which is completely out of the ordinary for me because, 1, I love cider, and 2, it's just one of those summer drinks you have to have and everybody loves. So, we're going to fix that tonight and have a cider. So, like I said, it was a rough week for Atlanta, if you couldn't tell. All right. So, guys, let's open up with the trade deadline. We had some pretty damn huge trades fall. I got to be honest. The first one here that we're going to talk about, I expected one of these 2 to go. I did not expect both of them to go, and I did not expect them both to go to the same team. I'm talking about the Nationals trading away outfielder Juan Soto and first baseman Josh Bell to the Padres for a slew of prospects. Left-hander Mackenzie Gore, outfielder Robert Hassel III, shortstop C.J. Abrams, outfielder James Woods, right-hander Jarlin Susanna, and DH first baseman Luke Voigt. And it remind me, guys, this is the one where they were supposed to send Hosmer over, and Hosmer said, hell no, I'm not going to a crappy team like the Nationals. So the Padres said, all right, screw you. We're sending you to the Red Sox. So you're going to go to a last place team one way or the other. Guys, I did not expect this to happen. At least not both players. And I sure as hell didn't expect this to happen. 2 years in a row, the Nationals sending their 2 best players to the same team on the West Coast. not expecting that at all. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, it was kind of mind blowing, but it wasn't. I mean, the Nationals just seemed to have. I mean, they traded Rendon a few years back. They traded, you know, Scherzer and Turner last year. Yeah, I don't know exactly what they're doing, but hey, whatever.
I mean,
Yeah,
they're collecting prospects as much as they can, but
yeah, and San Diego is basically in this. They think this is their window, and they've got to go for it. And if you have to mortgage the future to do it, then see what happens.
yeah, I mean, that sums up pretty much the best way you can. Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't overly surprised to see them go trade with the Padres. We were talking last week that we were kind of thinking that it was down to pretty much the Cardinals and the Padres. I am very surprised at the type of haul they got. I mean, you're talking absolute top prospects, and the Padres just completely obliterated their farm system for Juan Soto and Josh Bell. So they're clearly in win now mode. It almost makes me think back to was it the Rams that basically traded that they don't have a draft pick for like a first round draft pick for a few years now because they were trading for everybody to try and win, and it worked out for them. But yeah, it's absolutely insane to see that type of haul. Good luck to the Padres. I hope you fail, but it's mainly because my team's in a wild card race with you. So, yeah, just crazy deal.
Yeah, this year was, I think, 7 or 8 straight years that the Rams have not had a first-round pick, which is utterly mind-boggling in the NFL, considering usually your first-round pick is a guy who can contribute year 1 or year 2. So it's not usually the type of pick you just automatically dump. But then again, they won a Super Bowl last year. So, and that's going to be the big thing. You bring up a good point, Jason. If the Padres don't get a World Series title while they have Juan Soto, this trade's going to go from making them a winner to absolutely making it one of the worst trades any team has ever made in baseball history.
Yeah, I mean, they've already dropped a spot in the standings. And you look at Juan Soto is a free agent at the end of this year.
Nope.
No,
he's not.
Two more years.
Two more years.
Okay, that's right. I kept thinking as the Nationals were trying to keep getting that deal done, that it meant that his term was up. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, and what a big win for the Nationals. I know that they basically just blew everything up. They're starting from scratch again. Essentially. But their farm system is now absolutely loaded.
Hey, it couldn't get any worse than what it was, and you know what? I feel for Nationals fans because that team's not going to be worth going to see for a few years. They've got a couple guys that are now close to being ready to be called up and contribute maybe next year, but for right now, for the rest of this year, that's a pretty bad team.
And the weird thing to think about is they're not even 3 years removed from winning the World Series, and they've already blown it all up. I mean, and they were bad last year too. So figure like even within 2 years of winning the World Series, they're now one of the worst teams of the majors. Like I know teams fluctuate between great years, playoff runs, and then having to rebuild, but I don't think that we've really seen a team drop that far that quickly.
The only teams I can think of doing that would be the Marlins after they would win a World Series and then fire sale the entire team in the offseason. That's the only big top to bottom jump I can remember. And let's be realistic. Those Marlins teams that won World Series were wild card teams. They weren't even the best teams in the division ever. The Marlins have never won the NL East, I don't even think. So, we've seen it before, but never quite like this. And I mean, let's even remember the Nationals won the World Series the year after they lost Bryce Harper in free agency, creating the absolutely hilarious memes of we saved how many ever hundreds of millions of dollars by switching to whoever was, in the outfield Harper spot. Brilliant memes, but great. You got your one title and now you just keep tearing it down. When is it going to end? And let's remember too, the team's up for sale right now. Ownership is actively trying to sell the team. I can't help but think they just dropped what they're going to sell this team for significantly because they have no star talent on that team. I just don't get it. I can understand Soto or Bell. I don't really understand dumping on both. I really don't. It doesn't make sense to me. Granted, it's a hell of a prospect haul. All right. So we also had one of the late deals that came through on Tuesday. The Royals and infielder outfielder pretty much play anywhere and could probably pitch and catch. Whit Merrifield to the Blue Jays for right-hander Max Castillo and infielder Samad Taylor. The Blue Jays had to do something. They needed to fortify the lineup. Compared to what the Yankees did, it really looks like the Blue Jays did next to nothing in this trade deadline. But then again, we'll talk about the Yankees coming up. They brought in a ton of talent. So go ahead, Joe.
Like you said, Andrew, they brought in a ton of talent. One of those deals, they traded Jordan Montgomery to St. Louis for outfielder Harrison Bader, who Gold Glove winner last year, was coming off the injured list, I think, here soon. But stand-up talent, good ball player, good dude, and certainly improves the depth in that outfield. Holy cow.
I was surprised to see this trade, to be honest with you. I did not expect the Cardinals to give up Bader, and I don't really think Montgomery is. I don't think he's as good of a guy as they gave up to get. I understand they needed pitching, but I feel like that was not a great deal made by the Cardinals. I think it was a great deal, though, for the Yankees.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily expecting them to get rid of Bader. And, I mean, the Yankees went out and got, Benintendi too and Gallo.
They got rid of Gallo.
Or they got rid of Gallo. But anyway, they got Benintendi, and it's like, okay, so are you just preparing to lose Judge? Is that kind of the mindset? Maybe. I don't know.
That's a good thought. I hadn't even thought about that. Jason, what's next?
Yeah, so one thing that I want to touch on quickly with the Whit Merrifield trade, there was a really hilarious meme, and Joe, I know you would appreciate this because it's from the Moneyball movie. It's the scene where Noah, I can't think of the actor.
Dude, come on, you can't do this to us.
Jonah Hill?
You can't build it up like this.
Jonah Hill, yeah.
Jonah
You have Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill's at the board saying, this is so-and-so. He has this, and this. His only drawback is, I think it was Kevin Yougless. The only drawback is he runs funny. Only it was the meme of, this is Whit Merrifield. He has stat. The only drawback is he legally can't play in our country because he wasn't vaccinated at the time. I'm assuming he has since gotten vaccinated, but it was just absolutely hilarious. And then so the Phillies then ended up having one of the first. It ended up being their last trade of the day, but they did go for a starting pitcher. They got Noah Syndergaard from the Angels. So Thor is in Philly, and they traded Mickey Moniak, who was former first-round pick in 2016, actually first overall pick in 2016, if I remember correctly. And also outfielder Jadiel Sanchez. Moniak really didn't pan out. He only had like 15 hits in 105 plate appearances, I believe it was. Really wanted that kid to work out. It's really unfortunate because he was having a heck of a spring training this year, was going to make the team, be the starting center fielder until a pitch broke his hand in the very final spring training game. So he missed a couple months there, and he just still hasn't gotten it back. And then there's another deal later that made Moniak expendable. And the kid still can't catch a break. He had a couple home runs for the Angels, and he is now out, and again with what I believe is a broken finger after being hit by a pitch again. So the kid just can't catch a break.
Well, apparently he's catching too many breaks. And
that's also true. But yeah, so the one of the big deals on the day for the Phils is they did bolster their starting rotation. No more bullpen games unless there's other things that happen. So Thor is in town, and I see our friend Ronald is commenting here. I have to give Ron a shout out here. I was going to do it later, but since you're on here, Ron, he messaged me asking what number I thought Thor would go with because he was 34 with the Angels, and that number in Philly is retired for Doc Halladay. And I suggest, maybe sometimes they might just drop the one number, so maybe 33 or 44. And Ron actually goes, I'm wondering if he might just reverse the numbers and go with 43. And that is exactly what Syndergaard ended up doing. So, Ron, great call. Number 43 for Thor.
And Big Jim has hopped on here. What's up, gents? Thoughts on the rest of August making or breaking the Orioles' playoff chances? So, Jim, here's the thing. After the Orioles, and we'll cover this trade coming up a little later, after the Orioles decided to dump their closer, dump Trey Mancini, in yet another baffling, idiotic, terribly stupid move by the wonderful Angelos family and the management of the Orioles, they're not out of it, man. Definitely not. They're only 2 games out of the wild card, but giving up your best player and getting rid of your closer who has done a good job of anchoring what's honestly been a fairly solid bullpen for the Orioles, I don't think it's going to happen. And I don't understand why the Orioles were selling off. They shouldn't have been selling. They should have either been staying pat or grabbing pieces and building towards next year as they can start bringing up more and more of their good talent that's getting up to the high minor levels and getting ready to make the jump to the major league level. I just absolutely mind-blowingly idiotic trade deadline for the Orioles, in my opinion.
I kind of agree, but I don't at the same time. Giving up the closer was not the right decision. I agree there. Part of me wonders, I feel bad for Trey Mancini, not if the Orioles do make a deep run, for not being with the team for that. But I think the Orioles also are looking out for him by sending him to an even bigger contender, just because he has a chance to win a World Series with the Astros. So I think they're trying to help him out. And I don't even know that I would consider Trey their best player, at least at the moment. I think that actually goes to Adley Rutschman, who has just been an absolute machine. So I think the Orioles can still make a run, especially because you have a completely decimated Rays team. You have the Blue Jays who are also struggling. So the Orioles are still playing great baseball. So I think they can make a run. I don't want to jinx anything, so I'm not going to say my full thoughts. So, Jim, I won't finish that thought, but yeah.
And he said the only way I can justify the Mancini trade is if he's planning on retiring this year, next year, and he wanted to win a World Series. Losing the closer, big dumb. Yeah. And this has not come out anywhere that Mancini has said this, but if he told management that, I can understand them making the deal and trying to give him a boost. That harkens back to the Ray Bourque trade to the Avalanche back. What was that, 98, 99, early 2000s, whenever that was. So he could get a chance for a Stanley Cup. We see this every year, and most sports leagues, a little less than the NFL because the trade deadline is just not as big of a thing for the NFL teams. But you see it in basketball, you see it in hockey, you see it a lot in baseball. I'm with you though, Jay. I don't understand giving up the closer. And you know what?
Their pen was one of their biggest strengths.
And you know what the Orioles got back? They got back another 6 pitching prospects. That was the net result from their trading away Mancini and trading away the closer. What the hell? I got nothing. All right.
Moving on. We did have another. The Padres trade did also happen with Eric Hosmer. He did eventually go to the Red Sox. Since he declined the trade to the Nationals, he now goes to Boston, which, I mean, I guess, if you're going from one bad team to the other, at least you get to play at Fenway. You get to experience Boston. Maybe there's a silver lining there for Hosmer, since he's clearly not going to be fighting for a playoff spot.
I mean, they are 18 games better than the Nationals. So,
that's true.
Well, they're in the cellar. They're not the worst of the cellar teams.
Yeah, but basically the full deals of this trade, Padres sent Hosmer, infielder Max Ferguson, outfielder Corey Rosier, and cash to the Red Sox for left-hand pitcher Jay Groom.
Hey, Dan, it's Ichiro, not Griffey. And I'm wearing the Mariners jersey for a very specific reason that I will be discussing shortly. All right. So I'm sorry, Joe. I almost jumped you. You're up next. Go ahead with the Cubbies trade.
Yeah, real quick though on the Hosmer deal, I was almost expecting the Cubs to jump into that conversation, and I was surprised that they did not.
But are you surprised though?
I mean, Cubs management this trade deadline compared to last year, I have so many questions.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yeah, the Cubs made this next trade, and I knew they would, because as I said for like a month, they sent David Robertson, as I said, trade value up, to the Phillies. You're welcome, Jason. For a right-handed pitcher, Ben Brown, who I think may have been as high as AA or AAA in the Philly organization, made his debut in AA for the Cubs this weekend, had 9 strikeouts in 5 innings. So, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that one for the future, at least.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is one that has the potential to benefit both teams. I need to see David Robertson pitch more before I'm fully sold on it, because I am still sour from the 6th inning thievery that he had with his first run with the Phillies. I mean, granted, he got hurt, had surgeries and whatnot. He could not pitch, but it was a pretty big deal that they gave him, and he pitched 6 innings. So, I'll get to that later, because he did start out really well with the team. So yeah, the moment I saw that trade, I was thinking, really? Well, they don't need to alter the jersey for the new team post. They just found an archived photo. Surprised he wasn't in a sling for it, but I think the Phillies, I'm okay with the move right now, the more that I think about it, especially if he keeps performing the way he has this season, just because their 3 needs were center fielder, starter, and late inning bullpen, because the Robertson trade already benefits the Phillies because they DFA'd Jerry's Familia. So, like, that already kind of pays for itself. So far, like the 2 Phillies trades that you've mentioned and the one with the Cubs, Joe, they both fill a need in Philadelphia. So,
Hey, Jason, how much was that contract they gave to Roberts the first time?
I don't have it offhand, but I will find out for you.
Because if it makes you feel any better, Atlanta did sign Cole Hamels in 2020 to an $18 million contract, and he pitched 3 1/3 innings. Now, granted,
And that's a starter.
Granted, it was prorated because it was that, because the pandemic rules and all that. So it wasn't actually an $18 million deal when it was all said and done. But, I totally get it. When a guy comes in and does next to nothing for a lot of money, I get it.
It was in 2000, or excuse me, before the 2019 season, they signed him to a 2-year, $23 million contract. He ended up having Tommy John surgery in August of 2019. So he pitched 6 2/3 innings in 7 appearances over the entirety of the deal. He never got a win. He never got a save. So the save that I will talk to later was his first save in a Phillies uniform since 2019. Since before 2019.
That's insane.
Yeah.
If our listeners haven't picked up on it, Jason is not a fan of David Robertson.
He could win me over. Like, he can win me over, Like, he's on the up and up right now after last week. So,
but again,
he fills a need.
It matters.
I would rather have him than Jairus Familia. So, big win.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah,
Familia was an unmitigated disaster out of the bullpen for you guys.
But again, props to the team for recognizing that need and for finally taking the measure needed, because it wasn't a cheap deal. Similar to the Mets and Cano, person's not performing, get them out of there. And it leads to the next trade point on our list here, which is exactly, the final need that they needed. And this actually, I believe, was the first deal that the Phillies did on the day, on Tuesday, was they got Brandon Marsh, center fielder, young. I believe he may even be a rookie, or it's only his second year. He's only like 23. Brandon Marsh, center fielder from the Angels, in exchange for catcher Logan O'Hoppe, which I'm glad that they have filled their need, but I am sad that they had to give up Hoppe, especially after he was listed as one of their untouchables. And maybe because of how JT Realmuto has been producing lately, he's finally found his stride again. But catching depth is hard to find, and long-term catching prospects are hard to find. And I do think O'Hoppe is going to be a stud. He was lighting it up in Double-A. He's actually one, like, I am very high on him that I've actually been kind of hoarding some of his first Bowman autograph cards, waiting for the day eventually that he comes up to kind of go from there. But, Brandon Marsh has been filling in well in center field. And again, a deal that already paid off. I've been trying to manifest this for months. Dual Herrera was DFA'd. So that number 37 from the Phils is gone, and the Phils are going to be much better for it, both defensively and offensively. So no problem overall with these 3 trades. The Phillies are a better team because of them.
Yeah, Jason, I have to agree with you on Herrera. Both games that I was at this year that I watched the Braves beat the Phillies, in both games, I watched Herrera make absolutely mind-boggling runs towards the ball and come up with them in a manner not consistent with the direction he needed to throw.
Well, I mean, and we saw this back in the mid 2000 teens when Cole Hamels had the no-hitter against the Cubs in Wrigley. The final out was it was a deep fly to center field, but it should have been a fairly easy play, and he gets out to the center field wall, and he has to dive back and forwards in order to make the catch and end the game and preserve the no-hitter. So
I think if he had missed that, Cole Hamels rightfully would have murdered him after the game.
Well, and it was Cole Hamels' last start. He was traded to the very next day, I believe, to the Cubs. And I think the other thing that we need to remember with Odubel is he also struck out swinging at a ball that went in between his legs. So no love lost there. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. If you do, it probably hits you harder than you hit the baseball.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. All right, and then this was a right-hander we were keeping a close eye on, Jason, because we thought he could have ended up with both Atlanta or Philadelphia. The Reds sent right-hander Tyler Mahle to the Twins for infielder Spencer Steer, third baseman Kristen Strand Encarnacion, and left-hander Steve Hajar. And I think that ended up the Twins were the highest bidder there. Neither Atlanta nor Philadelphia was willing to give up that much for Mahle.
No, and they shouldn't have.
No, he's not worth 3 prospects. Sorry. Twins, you overpaid on that one. And then the Yankees traded outfielder Joey Gallo to the Dodgers for right-hander Clayton Beeter. Big
deal.
I don't understand this one from the Dodgers' perspective one bit. I think the fact that the Yankees got a player for Joey Gallo and not, like a pound of catfish and we'll repair one of your minor league fields busted something or another in exchange is pretty remarkable. I did see a very fun, absolutely irrelevant stat. Since this trade, the Dodgers are 5-0 and the Yankees are 0-5. And I'm not even sure Joey Gallo played in any of those games. So that's your irrelevant stat of the night and taking numbers out of, completely out of touch with reality.
The only thing that I wish they would have done was trade him to the Nationals, just because I wanted to see what the batting average dropped to then, because after the Juan Soto and Josh Bell trade, the Nationals team batting average dropped well below 250. So imagine getting the 0.037 batting average or 136 batting average of Joey Gallo in there, and that the team might even be closer to 200. That would have made my day.
So here's my question. Over under the Mendoza line, where will the Nationals team average be at the end of the year?
They'll be above it, but only because they'll luck into some hits.
Yeah, probably. Gallo has actually appeared in 4 games for the Dodgers, and he is 2 for 10, so he's actually raised his season average from 159 to 160. He's still struck out 6 times and hasn't walked yet, though. So not really much has changed, not surprisingly. All right. Who's up next?
I think Joe has the last couple.
All right. Take it away, man.
Yeah. So we had the Orioles dovetailing off what we talked about earlier. They traded their closer, Jorge Lopez, to the Twins for Cade Povich, Yenier Cano, Juan Rojas, and Juan Nunez. He was my adulting reliever of the week 2 weeks ago, and now he's gone. To the Twins. So I think the Twins definitely got better. We talked about this, but I don't understand making a trade like this when you're not out of it.
Yeah.
So
absolutely mind-blowing. All right. And then what's what was the last big trade there, Joe?
Yeah, the Pirates traded Jose Quintana and pitcher Chris Stratton to the Cardinals for Johan Oviedo and Malcolm Nunez. So the Cardinals definitely got better in starting pitching, I think, particularly with Quintana. Quintana is a little bit of a sour one for me, considering that, we traded him for Dylan Cease, or we got him for Dylan Cease and Eloy Jimenez and didn't get anything out of that one. So hopefully the Cardinals have the same result.
The Cubs gave up Dylan Cease and Eloy Jimenez. That's rough.
Now, granted, obviously they were prospects at the time, but still, to have given those two up for Jose Quintana and to not have a title to show for it, yeah.
I don't know, man. That's a rough trade. I've got one traded away a prospect that we never should have traded that might actually be worse. When Atlanta traded Adam Wainwright and Ray King and Jason Marquis to the Cardinals for J.D. Drew and Eli Marrero, I think we got you beat. That was a horrible trade. Because look at what Wainwright's done. And the thing that really sucks about that, Wainwright was an Atlanta guy from Brunswick, Georgia. So really frustrating to do. I to this day, I don't understand the trade. I didn't understand it back then. Granted, I was fairly young, so I wasn't looking at it analytically, but terrible trade. Worked out for the damn Cardinals. Anyway. All right, guys. So looking at the here's my list of winners among the teams that were obviously buying. Clearly, the Padres and the Yankees were probably the two biggest winners of any of the buying teams. I also had the Astros on there. I had the Mets, the Braves, the Phillies, and the Twins as well. Do you guys have any of the other buying teams that you would consider winners from the trade deadline, or anybody you think shouldn't be on that list?
I would probably add the Cardinals to that list. They made some pretty significant improvements, and it's kind of already paying off for them.
Okay. I actually had the Cardinals as losers, but hey, I'm not always right. Neither are you. Joe, what'd you think of the list?
Yeah, I mean, I think they all did what they needed to do to improve their clubs. I agree with Jason. The Cardinals certainly did what they needed to do. And I mean, the big thing with the Padres and the Yankees is they're winners for now. In a few years, are we going to still consider them winners if they didn't win a title?
Right, and that's always the hardest thing to determine in these trade deadlines. I mean, we did have it look at last year. We did still have Atlanta listed as a winner at the trade deadline, but, we still had the caveat of, are they going to win the title? And they did, so you can call that trade deadline a complete slam dunk, but if Atlanta hadn't won the World Series title, is it as big of a slam dunk win as what we thought at the end of last year and even at the deadline? That's always the tough thing to look at the trade deadline, the teams that go all in on these guys. Now, that said, I know I said otherwise earlier. If the Padres are able to lock up Juan Soto to a long-term deal, which if it's less than what the Nationals offered, I'm going to laugh incredibly hard. Then I think even if they don't win a World Series title with Soto, I think it's probably still a win to get such a phenomenal young hitter locked up for a very, very long time. I think that's, the Phillies and Harper, even if they don't win a title, it's probably, especially given how contracts have gone insane ever since then, it's still a win, even if they don't get the title out of it.
Yeah, I mean, especially that looking at that deal compared to what deals have come out since, the Phillies are almost getting away with thievery with getting Harper for that low, especially considering the way that he's produced since he's been with the team.
I still don't like the no trade clause, especially late, and the no way of getting rid of him. But anyway,
that's fair, but I think that's to be expected in deals like that. A player wants to essentially finish his career with one team. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one that is kind of common. So,
yeah. All right. And then for the for the buyer losers, I had the Blue Jays, the Brewers, the Cardinals, the Dodgers, the White Sox, the Orioles. The reason I had the Cardinals on here is I don't like giving up Harrison Bader. I don't think that deal made any sense. I don't think the pitching they got back is good enough to justify losing a Golden Glove caliber outfielder when in the playoffs, defense is everything. You need the bats there too, but let's face it. If it's late in the World Series, I'm glad Atlanta pulls Marcell Ozuna out of left field if he's not starting at DH and puts somebody in there who actually knows how to catch. So that's why I had the Cardinals on there. The Brewers I had on there because I think giving up Hader was absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that they didn't pick up a bat to bolster that lineup anywhere doesn't make any sense to me. And the Blue Jays, compared to the Yankees, they essentially stood pat. What do you guys think about about my thoughts on the losers of the buyers?
Yeah, I think, like you said, well, I mean, the Brewers are losers to begin with, but this just adds to it. Ownership was like, well, they're in the mindset of we never rebuild, we just retool. So I think they wanted to improve. I guess I don't know that Taylor Rogers is better than Hader, but he's younger, so maybe that's what they were thinking. Retooling the bullpen a little bit. I thought the Blue Jays could have done more, especially with Springer being injured. The Dodgers, it's hard to tell. You never know if they won or lost. I mean, picking up Gallo makes you a bit of a loser, but
yeah. And I think aside from that, the Dodgers didn't really have a need to do a whole lot. And by the time the Soto deal went through, there wasn't really a whole lot for them to do to counter that.
I was surprised the Dodgers didn't go after another starter because I don't know when Bueller's coming back, but maybe he'll be back before the playoffs, so they won't need him. But I'm of the opinion you can never have too much starting pitching at any given time.
Yeah, depth is key. Yeah. And I'm not sure. I think I can see why you have the Orioles on the list as the buying losers because they didn't really buy. But because they didn't buy, I don't know that I would have them on the list. But
so I'm so pissed off at the Orioles. That's why I have them marked as losers under both the buy and sell column. I'm just so pissed off at what they did. Anyway. So the winners for the sellers, I had the Nats, and I go back and forth Nats because you give up a generational talent who could potentially be a Hall of Famer someday, but it was a hell of a haul back that you got for him. I also had the Reds. They as well. They managed to bring back a pretty good haul of prospects, especially from the Mariners in the Castillo trade that we talked about last week. Any of the other sellers that you'd put under the winners column, guys?
I know you have the Angels under didn't do enough to grade. I would kind of have them in the winners section of the sellers because they did get a few really good prospects back from the Phillies in their deals. Like I know Moniak ended up getting hurt again, but he actually was really doing well for them. And Logan O'Hoppe, I think, can be a catcher of the future for them. And the other thing with it is they also kept, like, they sold some of their team, but they also kept a good core of Ohtani and Trout. So I think they slightly sneak onto the winner section.
Yeah, I'll admit I didn't really factor O'Happ in there. That was a good pickup. But really, I couldn't tell what they were doing. That was my big problem with the Angels because it's, you know what I mean? We're not really trying to buy, we're not really trying to sell, but we're really trying to kind of do something and make up your minds. And really, the Angels should have been doing what the Orioles should have been doing. They should have been trying to buy longer-term pieces to build for next year. And I don't really know that either team did that.
Definitely not.
Yeah. My three biggest losers of the sellers, I have the Red Sox, the Cubs, and like I said, I'm pissed at the Orioles, so they get on there again. Joe, Jason and I talked about this last week. Why do you trade the young under team control for like 4 or 5 more years, rookie bullpen arm who's pitching out of his mind for nothing? What the hell were the Cubs? And then they held on to Contreras. They held on to Happ. I'm glad they let Roberts needed to be traded. That was absolutely the right call. But does this mean there's an extension or a re-signing of Contreras coming that we don't know about? Are they finally reading your damn shirts?
Well, before I talk about the Cubs, back when in the losers of the buyers, I think if you're a White Sox fan, you have to be pissed at going, you did nothing? We're 3 games behind the Twins and you did nothing?
Yeah, that's why I had them there. And the Twins actually made improvements to their roster. And as weak as the AL Central is, it's probably going to be enough to push the White Sox into the dust. And I'm okay with that.
It could be. Yeah, the Cubs, I'll tell you what, Efros I was surprised about, but the more I've sat back on it, the Cubs have proven the last 6-7 years that they can develop a bullpen pretty regularly. And the guy they got back, his name escapes me at the moment, but the guy they got back for Efros is up in AAA right now was in AAA for the Yankees. So he's closer to Major League ready. And with a lot of uncertainty in the starting rotation, you can't have enough pitching, as you always say. Hendricks is down still. He's been down since before the All-Star break. No real timetable on him coming back. Nobody knows what's going on with Wade Miley, really. I think he had a rehab start last week, but, I don't know how soon he's coming back. So, they had a lot of injuries in the pitching and a lot of uncertainty in the rotation. So it does help them build for the future, but I'm going to miss that freaky delivery and a slider and a sinker that end up, 20 inches either direction.
Yeah, I loved watching him pitch. He's the kind of guy that if me and Jason were playing on the show, I would try to acquire because Jason does not do well with submarine sidearm delivery pitchers. It's his kryptonite.
Yeah, and as far as the rest of the Cubs stuff goes, once the Soto deal went down with the Padres, that kind of took a lot of maybe what Jed wanted to do off the table, because it sounded like that was the big conversation, was them and the Padres. And then when the Soto deal goes through, well, I guess you didn't like anything else you were getting back. And Jed tried to, maybe it's team speak, maybe it's whatever you want to call it, but he was like, it wasn't, I wasn't going to give him away for pennies on the dollar. So, does that mean extension? Well, I'll tell you this, for Cub fans, it's extension or bust. If you don't extend the man, then you're going to be stuck giving him a qualifying offer, which he's earned a little more than that, I think.
Quite a bit.
But, so this could get a little interesting. I don't really like the way that they handled that, kind of letting that drag on all day. If you're going to keep him, and make it pretty clear. But, I thought that he might end up in Queens, and that didn't happen either, which really surprised me. So to me, it's extend him or go F yourself as far as I'm concerned. Because, you have to, you're either serious about being competitive in a year or two or you're not. And by not trading him, that makes me say, well, then we better be competitive next year.
And you better re-sign him.
Yeah.
Because if he walks and you got nothing other than what you're going to get back for him declining the qualifying offer.
Yeah.
At least now, Joe, whenever you say Efros on the podcast, we know that you're talking more about the manager than the bullpen arm.
I will say that did give us some clarity here, but I'm going to miss him for sure. So
that was the most mind-boggling, baffling trade I think of the entire trade deadline was the Efros trade. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I get the point of control, and I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's how young? And you traded him?
He literally, I think, had 4 or 5 years until he was a free agent.
Yeah, he had 5 years left.
Right, because this is his rookie year. Yeah.
So, so to me, it's get competitive or go away. On that note, though, Jed Hoyer was interviewed tonight and said Hayward will not play the rest of the year and he will not be with the team next year.
Huh.
So they are going to eat that last year of his contract.
Wow.
Which is pretty wild.
I'm shocked. I am shocked. Happy shocked, but I'm shocked. All right. So the reason I wore the Mariners jersey, going back to Dan's comment here, two reasons. One, last year when I wore the Mariners jersey, the Braves would do well the week following and would do poorly the week after I wore the Chipper jersey, which makes no sense, but it is what it is. So one, I'm trying to jumpstart the luck. But two, I put the Mariners in a special category of who the hell knows what was going on. They make a great deal early to wrap up the best pitcher available. This is a lineup that needs at least one more bat in it somewhere to take some of that strain off J-Rod, and they don't do anything. They watch while the Astros collect Christian Vasquez. What the hell were the Mariners thinking? I don't understand.
And Trey Mancini and
yeah, I don't understand. I get it. They're probably not going to catch the Astros. They're 11 games back at this point. But they are firmly in the wild card. And as we know, as long as you're in, you have a chance. So what the hell the Mariners were thinking, just grabbing a starter and doing nothing beyond that, I just don't understand. All right, enough of the Mariners. And then any team I haven't mentioned yet, I had them listed as they really didn't do, they either sat pat or they didn't do enough for me to make a solid grade. So that's that for the trade deadline. Do you guys have anything else from the trade deadline? I think we kind of beat the dead horse to death.
Yeah. The only other thing that I had of note was the Giants with Carlos Rodon. I was a little surprised that they didn't move him.
Especially when they said anybody who's not named Logan Webb is available.
Yeah, and to me, that tells me that their asking price was way too high.
Yeah.
So.
Not surprising. It's the Giants after all.
Yeah.
All right. So, Jason, what's up on Down on the Farm?
So down on the farm here, two players of the week here. I usually do one batter and one pitcher. So the batter here, Jonathan Perlaza, second baseman for the Tennessee Smokies, which is the Double-A for the Cubbies. Joe, that second baseman in your farm system, his slash line this week, 417, 500, 1.125. 5 home runs and 8 RBI. So a really darn good week there for Perlaza. And then the pitcher of the week, I went to Derek Rodriguez of the St. Paul Saints. So creative name there. Triple-A for the, you guessed it, Twins. And he went 1-0 this week, 6 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 4 strikeouts, and opponents were hitting a 143 batting average against him.
Not a bad week. All right. Thank you, Jason. Joe, we saw today the uniforms released for the upcoming Field of Dreams game, which will be this Thursday evening between the Reds and the Cubs. Beautiful uniforms. You want to tell us about them?
Yeah. So the Reds are the home team in this game. They'll be wearing the circa 1919 uniform, which it's fitting that they're the home team for this one, given that they beat the White Sox in that 1919 famous World Series. So that's the obvious choice for why they're in this one. The Reds team, the Reds uniform, it's a white hat, black pinstripes, large red line around the bottom of the hat, and a stylistic C on the hat and center. Jerseys are white with black pinstripes, a wishbone C on the front, with the Reds on the inside of that C, block red numbers on the back, and there's no names on these jerseys either, as from what I understand. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's because back in this era, nobody had names in the back of the jerseys.
Right. Nothing related to the pants there, but I'm assuming it'll be something to pinstripe or that faded white to match it.
Yeah, Joe, the Reds wore these a couple years ago when they were doing one of their centennial years. They had these as a throwback and had white pinstripe pants. So I'm assuming that'll be the same because these are basically the same uniforms from then.
probably 3 years ago when they, celebrated winning the World Series in 1919.
Maybe. I can't. Truthfully, I don't remember which year it
Just a
was.
hunch. Yeah. And then the Cubs are going to have a hybrid uniform. They're going to have a navy blue cap with the logo of the bear holding the bat. That was from their 1914 year. The jersey's cream style from the 1927-1936, the wishbone C again on the front for this uniform with the bear inside of it. Navy piping on the jersey and around the neck. The sleeves have double navy stripes on it. So the numbers are red with navy outline and then obviously, again, no names on the back. So I'm looking forward to the game in general, but this is going to be really sweet to look at too. And I'm excited for Thursday night for sure.
Yeah, especially if they come out from the corn again. That's going to look really spectacular with those old style uniforms. And that logo, Joe, for the Cubs, the bear holding the bat, is one of my favorite old time logos. It's just very solid and just classic.
Yeah, it's a great look. I was kind of surprised the Cubs did a hybrid and didn't just do the 1914 uniforms. I thought that would have looked nice. But I think it's going to look great in the field either way. I know some comments I saw online are why are both teams in white and cream? And I think it's because if you remember the Field of Dreams field, they're playing pickup games. So everybody's wearing home uniforms. So I know the Yankees last year did do a gray, but that's what the Yankees always do. They're fairly steeped in their own tradition. So you're never going to really see them break from that. But I don't actually mind seeing the two teams in white and cream together. It might be a little hard to tell them apart because both teams using the wishbone, but really anybody paying attention to the game should be able to figure that one out. I think it really shouldn't be that hard. And I'm going to say what I said last year. Nike, their throwbacks, take the goddamn swoosh off the uniform for one game, please. It doesn't need to be there on a throwback when your company didn't even exist when these uniforms were made. Just doesn't need to be there. But this should be a really, really sharp looking uniform. Jason, I agree with you. I love the Bear Cup holding the bat. That is one of the best logos the Cubs have ever had. Wish they'd bring it back more, actually. I think it looks really good. Yeah.
We do, first off, are there any other thoughts on that? Okay, so we do have some sad news this week to go over. Vin Scully, the iconic Dodgers broadcaster, passed away Tuesday, August 2nd at the age of 94. And that is an absolute loss, not only for the Dodgers, but for the baseball community, just because of how amazing he was. He called Dodgers games for 67 years. And I saw a stat where basically between Connie Mack and Vin Scully spanned, like, one of them had been around for baseball for over 130 years. So big loss here. Friday, the Dodgers did have a moment of silence, and then they had a video narrated by current Dodgers broadcaster Charlie Steiner. Vin Scully's famous lines were, "It's time for Dodger baseball," and a gorgeous night, which is very frequent at Chavez Ravine and Dodger Stadium. I experienced this a few years ago, and it truly is stunning. But he would describe those nights as a cotton candy sky with a canopy of blue. Dave Roberts on Vin Scully, he said, "Vin, as he's looking down on us right now, well, he hated the spotlight on him. Well, this is going to be a very uncomfortable moment right now, but he deserves it. Vin was a man of character and integrity and class, a true gentleman. He wasn't just a Dodger. He loved the game of baseball that we all love and care about." The Dodgers uniforms feature a circular patch on the sleeve with a microphone below the name Vin, and that logo is has also been painted on the back of the pitcher's mound. So with this in mind, it's very hard to describe just because I remember back when Harry Callis passed away, and teams losing their iconic broadcasters is very difficult. It's like that they have lost their voice, because they're the guys that you hear over the radio. They're the guys that you hear on TV. Something that I kind of thought that we could look at here. I know that we kind of had a heads up here in our chat to prepare for tonight. Vin Scully has dozens upon dozens of all-time great calls. So I'm curious to know what your guys' favorite call from Vin Scully was. And I'll start with this one. I am going with the Sandy Koufax perfect game. The phrasing, and it's not even just the final out and the final pitch. The entire ninth inning, Vin Scully just kept describing the atmosphere, describing the situation, describing the colors of the stadium and the skies and everything. And this line that he had, you can almost taste the pressure now. There are 29,000 people in the ballpark and 1 million butterflies. So I'm going with the Sandy Koufax perfect game as kind of my favorite of the bunch. I know there's definitely a couple that are more famous, but I think that's one of my favorite moments.
I mean, with 63 years, there's so many moments to pick from. It's almost impossible to pick just one. Joe, what's your favorite moment?
Yeah, Vin had a great gift for the game. He loved the game, and he did a great job calling all of the games, obviously. But what I liked about him so much is he was a storyteller. Like he went on a tangent about beards one night, on the history of beards. He covered a game with Bumgarner was pitching, and he was talking about how they had a couple of snakes in their house or in their yard, and they went hunting or something. And the one that sticks out to me is like I got the first year I had the MLB like extra inning package or whatever it was called before was his last year as a broadcaster. And I had a game on one night, and they were playing the Brewers, and he spent 5 minutes talking about how Scooter Gennett got his nickname. That was just so amazing to me, the way that he tells this story. And he always did such a good job at telling the story and finishing that story as soon as that at bat was over.
And he knew every player on every team. He was one of the best researched announcers that you will ever have seen. And Jason, to a point that you made, when teams lose their iconic guys, I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago. Actually, it was about a month ago now when Casey Motter, the voice at Truist Park for the Braves, the only announcer they ever had at Truist Park, died. And just the amazing outpouring every stop they've been at along the way, especially that first series after he died was in Philadelphia, and Philly just they had roses up in the broadcast booth for him and everything like that. And I'm sure the Dodgers probably received very similar things after Vin died. My favorite moment, and this might not be surprising because I'm a Braves fan, but my favorite moment was when he called Hank Aaron's home run. Because after he called the home run, he just sat there silent for 26 seconds so you could hear the fireworks, so you could hear the crowd roar at the amazing accomplishment that Hank Aaron had just achieved, just to let everybody just bring it in, to have all of the feelings. It's something you don't see, I don't think, enough with broadcasters today. silence is not a bad thing to have in a broadcast. Sometimes that silence can be everything, all of the feelings, all of the emotions. Something that struck me that you wouldn't have seen it today. And then he said afterwards, a black man is getting a standing ovation in the Deep South for breaking a record of an all-time baseball idol. And it is a great moment for all of us, and particularly for Henry Aaron. He did it unlike so many, and there have been so many amazing announcers. You've got Harry Callis, you've got the entire Carey clan, because let's face it, all of the Careys are freaking amazing. And so many more. And Vin was just so well spoken, and just he was a guy that, as you guys know, I often turn on, when I'm watching games, especially if I have to run Dofu because of the stupid blackout restrictions in the area. I usually turn on the radio broadcast half the time, but I'm not going to lie. When it's been Braves Dodgers games, I've turned on Vin a lot just to listen to Vin talk, because he is just so amazing. So that's my favorite moment, was when he called Henry's record-breaking home run.
And that's from what I saw, that was number 2 or 3 as far as what Dodgers fans had picked to be their all-time favorite moment. Number 1 is Kirk Gibson's home run off Dennis Eckersley. Yeah. And I think all 3 of us kind of know that that's one of the most iconic one. And I'm actually kind of glad to see all 3 of us pick something different other than the Kirk Gibson home run. And I think, Joe, you mentioned about how he was a storyteller. We need to remember that, when Vin was first calling these games, radio was the primary way that people got the games. So he had to be that storyteller to give those fans listening the full experience. And as TV developed and things like that, he never lost that. And rest in peace, Vin. The baseball world is truly grieving, and it is definitely not going to be the same without him being around the game.
His first game he called was back in 1949, just to put that in perspective.
Yeah.
1949. The man truly saw so many remarkable moments in baseball.
Yeah. Gents, to Vin.
To Vin. All right, Joe. What do you have for our Release the Good story?
Yeah, so I was looking around today, and we found a story out of Indiana. A 16-year-old boy by the name of Landis Sims, born with no hands or feet, but can hit a curveball. So when he was 8 years old, he was at this softball team camp for limb deficient kids, put on by Wounded Warrior Project, and this cinematographer was there and was immediately drawn to this kid who was, crushing the ball. He's on prosthetic limbs and everything, and he's got the bat tucked in his body, and he's just shot after shot, talking smack. Like the kid was, embracing, what he's been dealt, I guess. And he's. The kid was a Yankee fan. This video person was a Red Sox fan, so he was letting him have it, which is always good. But there's a documentary out now that he is now 16 years old, plays high school basketball as well. And the documentary is called Landis Just Watch Me. And again, it's Landis Sims is the kid's name. Overcoming all these obstacles to get to the point where, the prosthetic technology so that he can continue to function as a normal child and to have the athletic success that he's had. So it was really just a neat story to it's very easy in our world right now to get very down very quickly. And to see someone embrace what challenge they've been given and to do something positive for it. He does a lot of great work for an organization I just found out about, Challenged Athletes Foundation. So I'm going to be doing a little bit more deeper dive into this for us, but he's going around and meeting with kids. He did some tours. He did some first pitches here the last in July. He threw a first pitch at Yankee Stadium, Petco Park in San Diego, Oracle, and Minute Maid, and then there's special screening events of the film. So there's home movies in this documentary. So again, you can see the progress and the progression, and it's really neat to hear stories like this. So a hat tip to Landis Sims. This is definitely something I'm going to be keeping an eye out for and looking a little closer at. So that's your release to good for tonight.
Awesome. And he clearly doesn't have trouble with the curve.
No, definitely does not.
Sorry, couldn't help myself. All right. So now on to somebody being an absolute dick. Let's talk about Pete Rose. So Rose was honored by the Phillies on Sunday along with other members of the 1980 World Series championship team. This was supposed to happen back in 2020, but COVID, so that got pushed back. When he was asked about his first appearance on the field in Philadelphia since the franchise scrapped plans in 2017 to honor him because of a woman's allegations that baseball's hit king had sex with her when she was a minor, Rose said to a female baseball reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer, "It was 55 years ago, babe." Later that Sunday, she tweeted that Rose asked her if he had offended her and offered to, quote, sign 1,000 baseballs for forgiveness before ultimately saying he was sorry. Dan, I completely agree. He also blew off another question from the AP after the ceremony about the allegation and his comment earlier in the day. He said, quote, "Who cares what happened 50 years ago? You weren't even born, so you shouldn't be talking about it because you weren't born. If you don't know a damn thing about it, don't talk about it. I'm going to tell you one more time, I'm here for the Philly fans. I'm here for my teammates, okay? I'm here for the Philly organization, and who cares what happened 50 years ago?" Now, this woman identified as Jane Doe back in 2017 because the AP does not release the name of sexual abuse victims or rape victims unless they give their consent for it. Said Rose called her back in 1973 when she was 14 or 15, and they had sexual encounters in Cincinnati that lasted several years. She also alleged that Rose met her in locations outside of Ohio as well. What a pig. He's a pig. He's out of touch with reality today. I really hope this basically puts a nail in the coffin of him making any more appearances at any major league stadiums until he dies. Absolutely unacceptable. Unacceptable. Jason, what did you think of all of this? Were you paying attention to the ceremony at all?
Yeah, so I wasn't home for the ceremony to watch it happen. But, there's replays and a coworker of mine, he was actually at the game, and he said that he did his duty by making sure that he was booing Pete Rose and listening to the introduction, listening to the introduction. It was fairly split as far as cheers and boos, which I think was probably about the best we could have asked for as far as making sure that you let him know just how much of a garbage human he is. Because I think part of the thing was, it was to celebrate the 1980 team. So, it's one of those, it's neat to see that these guys are all together, things like that, and this is where I was struggling with my emotions as I was seeing this. Cause I'm like, this is really neat to see that the 1980 team, at least the members who are still alive, are all together. But he's just a garbage human. Like, I do think that stats wise, as a player, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, but it does not take away from the fact that he is a despicable human being. And the thing about this, he was going to be going into the Wall of Fame in 2017 is what that event was going to be, until those allegations came out and the Phillies rightfully and very nicely done, removed that and did not let that happen. But if you want to have him there, don't give him any kind of media presence. Have him come out, acknowledge the crowd, and be gone. I do think that they needed to invite him just because he was part of the 1980 team. He should have politely declined to come. But don't give him a microphone. I see Dan commented, about laying him in the broadcast booth. Like,
That
was
horrible.
it was terrible. Like, why would you do that? Especially knowing what happened throughout the day and things like that. I don't understand it. He needs to, now that he made his appearance at the thing for the celebration of the 1980 championship team, he needs to never set foot in a ballpark ever again.
Yeah. That, like, in the fact that he was getting at Crucky, who, let's remember, is a cancer survivor. You don't need to be cussing in the broadcast booth. You don't need to be using crude, coarse language, locker room language in the broadcast booth. If you want to cuss, get on a podcast like us where we can drop the F-bomb anytime we want to, because we're not mandated by the CDC. If you want to do that, join a podcast or make your own podcast. I'm sure there's probably.
Do you mean the FCC?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, thank you.
I don't think the Center for Disease Control has anything to do with the podcast that we run.
Well, I don't know. COVID is still a thing, so you never know.
That's true.
That's why it's easier to do this remote video thing instead of live and in person. Plus, it's more fun to do the video anyway.
Yeah.
Ronald, you nailed it. It was disgusting.
And I think the response from the Philly crowd was, I'm very glad to see that kind of response to him, as far as being able to clearly hear the crowd being upset. I mean, he said he was there for the Philly fans. The Philly fans didn't really want him there after those comments. So
no, boy, if the Philly fans in the stands would have heard him, like if it would have been over the PA, they would have booed him out of the park immediately.
Yep, 100%.
So yeah, let's hope this is the end of Pete Rose's appearances. And let's hope this, if Rob Manfred ever screws up and thinks, we can let him in, we can reinstate him. Let's hope this is kind of the nail in the coffin to say, if you want your accolades, you can get them after you're dead.
Yeah.
Joe, any other thoughts from you?
No, I got nothing to add one way or the other.
All right. So, Jason, the Phillies had a hell of a week last week. You want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, so I'll let you cover game one of the Braves series when we get to them. And I'm going to be pretty quick with this one just because I know we are starting to run a little late. But the Phillies started the week with one of those dumb little 2-game series against Atlanta in Atlanta. And after losing game one, the Phillies did end up winning game two by a score of 3-1. Arcia had a home run for the Braves, and Castellanos had a home run for the Phils, so he's starting to heat up.
Castellanos got lucky thanks to an overturned replay.
Anyway, so Zach Wheeler.
If they hadn't overturned that replay, he never would have had the at-bat. So talk about taking advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah.
And a terrible pitch from McHugh. Jesus Christ, you can't.
Oh,
groove
yeah.
one in the middle to-
Zach Wheeler ended up getting the win because he was able to hang on into the game long enough until Castellanos had that home run. And then McHugh took the loss. Robertson, first career save with the Phillies. And it was in 1-2-3 fashion, 2 strikeouts, and I believe a foul out. So pretty awesome start there for Robertson closing the games. And then we had a 4-game series against the Nationals in Philly with the Juan Soto and Josh Bell-less Nationals. And it ended up being a 4-game sweep for the Phillies, something that the Phillies of the past, especially under Girardi, probably don't do. They maybe take 2. Game 1 was a 5-4 win in a rain-shortened 5-inning game. Gene Segura came back off of the injured list. He is healthy. And Rhys Hoskins and Bohm each had home runs. And in the top of the 5th, Castellanos threw the tying run out at home plate to end the inning. And right after that, all hell broke loose in the sky, lightning and thunder everywhere. And then I think a big reason for that is it was Noah Syndergaard's first start. So Thor came to play, and so did Mjolnir and thunder and lightning. So he needed that rain shortened inning because I was actually getting very nervous for them to win that game.
So Jason, what you're saying is there was a little bit of love and thunder involved there?
There was a little bit of love and thunder involved there. We didn't at least have to go into the dark world.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Espino took the loss for the Nationals. Dear God. And then I did touch on the number there. So Ron, again, a nice call on going from number 34 to 43. Game 2 was a 7-2 win. All of these the last 3 were all laughers here. 7-2 win. Home runs for Hoskins, Castellanos, Hall, JT Realmuto, and Schwarber. Schwarber's actually went to like the stairwell in the bullpen. Gibson got the win, Gray the loss. Gibson actually had 6 perfect innings, which again was something I never thought I'd be saying this year. He lost it in a Gibson fashion, I'm going to call it. Started the 7th by hitting Victor Robles with a pitch. So there goes the perfect game on a hit by pitch. And then Garcia followed that up with a single. So over the course of 2 batters, he lost the perfecto and the no-hitter. But he did get out of that inning. 7-2 win there. Game 3, 11-5 win. Rhys Hoskins had a home run, and it was his 3rd straight home run in the first inning over the course of those 3 games. And first time since like 1900, I believe, for that to happen in the Phillies uniform. Matt Vierling and JT Realmuto also had home runs. Luke Voigt, newly acquired from the Padres deal, had a home run. Ranger Suarez got the win. Patrick Corbin took the loss after only going 2/3 of an inning and giving up 6 runs. Game 4 was a 13-1 drubbing. Derek Hall had 2 more home runs. Nick Maton, and Rhys Hoskins homered, so Hoskins 4 straight games with a home run. Aaron Nola did not get Nola'd or DeGrommed, so he ended up getting the win, and Abbott took the loss. A couple notes here, stats-wise. Phillies had 14 home runs in the series to the Nationals 1. Phillies are 9-1 in their last 10. They've won 11 of their last 13. Since June 1st, they are 39-19. They are now 2nd in the wild card. So that they're in the 2nd wild card spot. They're a half game up on San Diego, 2 up on Milwaukee. And Andrew, they're only 3 behind your Braves for that top spot and for that top wild card spot. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I'm really interested to see what happens over the course of the next month and a half. The Phillies, out of their next 35 games, 28 are against losing teams. 25 of those games are against teams that are at least 10 games under 500. The Mets are the only winning team that the Phillies will see until mid-September. So, not saying that they need to win all those games, but they need to take care of business. They need to win series is what they need to do.
It's like what I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks with Atlanta. I'd love to see sweeps. I don't need to see sweeps. I want to see series wins. Take care of business against the teams you need to take care of. And that mid-September series where you will finally face a team that isn't so far in the basement, it's hilarious, is in Atlanta from the 16th through the 18th. So that will be a good series. That will probably have huge playoff implications by that point. So I'm excited for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the schedule is so bad this year, so bad. Just how it was balanced completely across the board. All right, so Atlanta, this week sucked. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This week just absolutely sucked. They did take the split. The game that the Braves ended up, yeah, I know, Joe, it felt like being a Cubs fan this week. I'm not going to lie, man. So the win in the Philly series was Spencer Strider going absolutely nuts along with the offense. He's had a career high of 13 strikeouts. Eddie Rosario tied a career high, driving in 5 runs, excuse me. The Braves pitching staff held the Phillies to 4 hits, and Strider has 4 double-digit strikeout games now in the season. And here's the big thing. The Phillies were not doing crap against his slider. He got 19 swings on his slider, and it was a whiff on 11 of those. So he's doing a really good job of using the fastball to set his slider up. Schwarber had a really nice thing to say after the game. He said, quote, "He's a good pitcher, but I feel like the more we can see him, the more we'll get used to it and go from there. But you have to tip your cap. He's pitched his butt off both times he's pitched against us," which, let's remember, was consecutive weeks, which is, as we've pointed out many, many times, very, very difficult for the pitcher to make consecutive starts against the same team because the batters definitely take an edge in that. And that was about the last of the good things for Atlanta last week. The rest.
One note of that game, Andrew, is the Phillies did throw a bullpen game out in that one. I believe that was with Gibson on the bereavement list at the time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a bullpen game. So 13-1 is less surprising given that. No offense. And then the rest of the week was a little bit rough. The 5-gamer in New York did not go any way I was hoping for as the Braves dropped 4 of 5. They lost game 1 6-4. Carrasco picked up the win over Wright. And this is going to be a common theme. Diaz is having a phenomenal year as a closer, and in this one he pitched a 2-inning save. And I expect the Mets to do that a lot the rest of the way out because his pitching style is to pound the strike zone, get strikes quickly, and induce as many ground ball flyouts as possible. Dan, should I just say that maybe you shouldn't go to games anymore because apparently when you're there, the Phillies lose. Actually, the funny thing about that, Jason, he was at the Braves game I was at, and another one of our coworkers from R.R. Donnelly way back when we all worked there, Elwood Eck, who is a huge Braves fan as well, was also at that game. So ironically, none of us ran into each other, but it's just funny how that works out. Game 2 was the only game that the Braves actually.
Sorry, Dan, you definitely don't have to go to any more if you don't want to. But I, of course, understand wanting to go to games. I'll be there on Wednesday for what I don't think will be a great experience with Alcantara versus Syndergaard, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, that's going to be a rough one. Oh, you found Elwood. Good for you. Wish I would have seen him. But I was way up in the 300 row, so I probably would have made it down. Good, honestly, though, really good seats up there in the 300. Great sight lines down to watch the game. So game 2 was the only game the Braves happened to win. That was a 9-6 victory. Minter picked up the win because Anderson was pulled one out short of qualifying. Taijuan Walker took the loss. He was hurt early, so he didn't last very long in that one. Ronald Acuna Jr. got a little bit of revenge on Pete Alonso by making a great jumping catch at the wall to rob a home run from Alonso, which I think would have been a 2-run shot if I remember correctly. The doubleheader, the Braves dropped both of those 8-5 and 6-2. The early game, Peterson beat Odorsey. And Odorizzi, he did not make it long in this game. Who knows? And then the nightcap was Scherzer over Fried. And I do know, and I don't think this is why the Braves lost. I do know Fried was trying to make a play and fell pretty hard, hit his head. The Braves were already losing at that point, so that's not what lost the game. But he was checked out after the game, cleared from concussion protocol and all that, but he definitely did not look quite right after that. And Scherzer pitched phenomenal because he's Max Scherzer. And then in the Sunday match, Spencer Strider got obliterated. I think he survived like 2 1/3, 2 2/3. And Jacob deGrom actually had run support for once and picked up his first win of the season. It was a 5-2 victory. And guys, deGrom was carrying a perfect game into the 6th inning before he surrendered a walk and then a 2-run homer to Dansby Swanson. And the biggest thing I got out of the series, the Braves were really amped up and swung at a lot of bad pitches. Granted, the Mets have really good pitching, but the Braves did not bat very disciplined. The Mets set a franchise record in the Sunday game for strikeouts in a 9-inning game as they struck the Braves out 19 times to 1 walk. So definitely not, again, 12 of them went to DeGrom in 5 2/3. So definitely not a banner game in any way, shape, or form for the Braves. It wasn't a great series. Like I said, I think I think Atlanta was just overhyped and did not play very disciplined, and the Mets came to play, and they played a phenomenal series. Spencer Strider, after the game Sunday, poured a little salt, tossed a little extra gasoline on the fire for the rivalry. He said, a lot of weird hits. They seem to be having a lot of luck right now offensively. That's great. It's August. We'll see what things are like in October. So hopefully this is the start of a very long rivalry between Spencer Strider and the New York Mets. I would love to see that, especially if he can make it past 2 2/3 innings next time. Also, after the series, Ian Anderson was optioned down to AAA with the Odorizzi trade. It gave the Braves the flexibility to move him down so he can get try and get straightened out for the playoffs. He is going to be called up for Saturday because the Braves have another doubleheader this week against the Marlins, so he's going to be called up as the extra guy. But other than that, that's about it. I know Ozzy's starting rehab on his foot. He hasn't started baseball activities, but he's starting conditioning. Kirby Yates should be called up shortly, and Darren O'Day just started rehab down at Single A, so O'Day should be back within the next couple weeks as well to help bolster the bullpen. All right, Joe, what about the Cubs?
Oh, great. Look, the shirt says what it says. I'm allergic to St. Louis, and apparently so is the Cub offense. So they got swept by the Cards in 3 games Tuesday, and then Wednesday was rained out in the doubleheader Thursday. Game 1, 6-0 loss. Yanni and Wainwright did something special in that one. It was their 317th start together, which was really neat to think about just how long they've been around. Wainwright went 7 innings, 6 hits, no runs, 4 strikeouts. Goldie had a 2 RBI single and a home run. Arenado had a home run. Carlson had a home run. Their offense is just there for them. St. Louis is loaded. So, that's game 1. Keegan Thompson looked terrible in this one. 4 2/3, 10 hits, 5 runs. It's just I chalk it up as a uncharacteristic and a rough start, but not anything to worry about going forward. Game 2 doubleheader. Game 1 they lost this one 3-4. Wilson was 2 for 5 after not being traded the day before. 2 runs, an RBI. He had a homer And then Seiya had a RBI single, and Wilson scored on that. The Cardinals, they're scoring to take the lead in this one. Gorman and Goldie had homers. Arenado had a double. And then one of the guys with the goofiest names on the Cardinals, Lars Nootbaar, comes up with a sac fly to tie the game, and then has an RBI single in the bottom of the ninth to win the game. Stroman pitched this one 6 2/3, 5 hits, 3 runs, 6 strikeouts. He was doing really well until he went back out for the 7th. And I think with it not being a doubleheader, he wouldn't have gone out for the 7th. But you traded the majority of your major league bullpen the day before, so you had to stretch some guys a little further than you may otherwise do. So they lost that one, and then Game 3 of the nightcap, 7-2 loss. This was the Jose Quintana revenge game, because of course it was. 6 innings, 1 hit, a run, 7 strikeouts. Edman was 3 for 5 in this game for St. Louis. It was a bullpen game for the Cubs again with some of the changes and trades and everything else. So that was the Cardinal series. Not exactly fun, other than the fact that Wilson is still on the team, which is exciting for me. So that ties into Friday, Game 1 against the Marlins. Wilson comes up with the big 2-run homer to take the lead in the bottom of the 8th, and what ends up being the game-winning run. So that was exciting, and the ovation he got returning to Wrigley was awesome. Justin Steele looked really good in this game. Didn't go far, didn't get the win, 4 2/3. Had 10 strikeouts and 4 hits, but he threw like 90-some pitches to get there. So wasn't able to qualify for the win and all of that. But put them in a position to be there in the 8th inning when Wilson comes through. Game 2, 4-0 win. Nico and Wilson had RBI singles. Drew Smiley, 6 2/3, 5 hits, 4 strikeouts, no runs. So Smiley was great again for them. Nico was 3 for 4 in Game 2 with a steal. Game 3, they lose this one 3-0 on Sunday. Luzardo for the Marlins was 7 innings, 1 hit, a walk, and 6 strikeouts. So was pretty impressive to watch that take place. So, not a great week for the Cubs, obviously. The positive being that, we know the future of Hayward at this point, finally, and that Wilson and Ian are still in town. So,
yeah, better week than Atlanta. You didn't drop 4 or 5
it didn't take much to be better than Atlanta.
Well, like I said, you didn't drop 4 or 5 to the Mets. So Lars Nootbaar, Joe, I looked it up because I was so curious. If he was, Scandinavian of some variety. I'm still betting he's got a, Norwegian heritage, but he was actually born in El Segundo, California. So, no, he is not the first Norwegian-born player to play in Major League Baseball. So that's unfortunate for us because that would have been pretty sweet if he was. All right, so moving on to the hot players of the week. Here is my list of guys for the hitters. I have Jorge Mateo of Baltimore. In 20 at-bats, he hit .354, 35, .850, 7 runs scored, 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, a double, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. I had, unfortunately, the polar bear decimated us last week, 367, 472, 733, 8 runs scored, 3 homers, 10 RBIs, 11 hits and a pair of doubles, 6 walks, 6 strikeouts. Mookie had a great week for the Dodgers, 375, 364, 688. He scored 8 runs, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, a stolen base, 4 doubles, as well as 12 hits. And then I also had Vlad Jr., 385, 429, 692, scored 4 runs, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 2 stolen bags, 10 hits, 2 doubles, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. Anybody else you guys want to mention on the hot hitters list for the week?
Half of the Phillies lineup.
That's crazy. Looking down at the raw stats here, because the list I look at, Jason looks at how they'd be ranked for fantasy baseball. And the first Philly would be Rhys Hoskins, and he's all the way down at 10. Like, he had a great week, and there were so many other guys who had better weeks that his was 10th. I mean, utterly insane. It really is. So, Joe, who is your Moneyball player of the week?
Well, I'm going to go with the runner-up. I think this team needs some good news these days. The runner-up is Adley Rutschman for the Orioles. 5 hits, 4 runs, 2 doubles, 1 RBI, but he had 7 walks in this game and a steal. So he was the runner-up. But your Moneyball player of the week this week, Jesse Winker from Seattle. Slash line of 250, 571, 750. It doesn't sound all that great, but he had 3 hits in 12 at-bats, official at-bats, 5 runs, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 9 walks, and 3 strikeouts. So
he got on base.
Gets on base.
That's insane. All right, looking at the pitchers, I have Kevin Gausman. He, in 2 starts, went 1-0, 14 innings, 15 strikeouts, 0 ERA, .57 whip, 7 hits, 1 walk. I had, unfortunately, Max Scherzer, who in 2 starts went 2-0, 16 strikeouts over only 13 2/3 innings, 1.32 ERA, .88 whip, 2 earned runs, 10 hits, 2 walks, 1 home run allowed. I had Jesus Luzardo of Miami. He went 1-1 in 2 starts, 12 innings, 11 strikeouts. He had a 1.50 ERA with a .42 whip, 2 earned runs, 4 hits, 1 walk. I had Jacob deGrom because, I'm sorry, after you almost throw a perfect game and take it into 6, you can't not. He went 1-0 because, of course, he got deGrom in his first start, ironically, against the Nationals. In 10 2/3, he struck out 18, most of them against Atlanta. 2.53 ERA, .47 whip, 3 earned runs, 4 hits, and 1 walk. Yeah, I'm not going to mention the other guy because I think he might be on Joe's list. Jason, anybody else for you for the hot pitchers?
Not initially, but since you said you can't keep him off the list because he took a perfect game into the 6th inning, you have to have Kyle Gibson on that list because he took a perfect game into the 7th inning.
Yeah, but did he also strike out 18 batters over 10 2/3?
He did not.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's not what you said. You said because he took a perfect game into the 6th inning, I can't not put him on the list.
And he also had, 2 starts.
Not the end. He also, but that is what you said.
Anyway, Joe, who's your adulting reliever of the week?
What if Joe has a person on the list?
He usually doesn't anymore because he devotes his time to the adulting reliever. But Joe, do you have another starter?
Let's put it this way. I had 3 starters listed just in case you didn't mention 2 of them. Because you were salty like Spencer Strider is salty.
I really hope that blows up down the road. I cannot wait to see it. That's what rivalries are made of.
I had DeGrom and Scherzer's stats ready just in case you didn't mention them out of spite. So
no, even I don't do that. I had earlier this year when Wheeler absolutely banned the Braves lineup from hitting, I had Wheeler on the list. So even when they screw my Braves, I don't keep them off the hot list. I've been pretty consistent about that, at least, even if y'all question my hot teams now and then. So who's your adulting reliever of the week?
I mean, wait a second. Questioning your hot teams. You had a hot pitcher on your list last week who had a great start against the Diamondbacks and is now in AAA.
And that has been by far the most frustrating thing with Anderson because it doesn't matter who he's playing. It's literally every other week. He has a good week, a bad week, a good week, a bad week, and it doesn't matter what team he's playing against. It's been utterly baffling because his command is either spot on or it's so far off. The freaking AA Mississippi Braves would probably crush him.
He's so hot, he's in AAA.
Let me pull. Do you really want to go down this rabbit hole, Jason? Because I can pull up I can pull up his game logs.
No, I'm just joining with Joe on this one.
Yeah, that's nothing new. Joe, who's the adulting relievers of the week?
Well, I've got plenty of salt in my beer, but you're gonna have some salt in your wounds after this one. Because who else could it be?
Edwin Diaz.
Edwin Diaz.
That's why I almost had him on. I almost had him on my damn list, and I was like, "No, Joe's going to put him on the adulting relievers list."
I mean, how could I not? 3 for 3 and save opportunities, and I'm not sorry about that. 3 and 2/3 innings, 1 hit, 7 strikeouts.
Didn't he? But don't you need the Mets to lose for your bet with your father-in-law?
That ship sailed a long time ago, man.
Now it's just we need to finally get some Andrew rants in here. Joe and I rant all the time because of how our teams tend to go through those patches, and it's about time that you go through one.
Well, the crazy thing is, I'm looking. All right, screw it. I pulled it up. So Anderson, he's picked up wins against the Padres this year. He's picked up wins against the Mets earlier this year. Then he would lose to like Milwaukee. He'd lose to Miami. And he had a ton of games where he couldn't get the hell out of his own way and pick up a decision because he was so wild. It's just absolutely baffling to watch him go from literally every other week, win, loss, win, loss. It's, I hope he can get himself straightened out for the playoffs because he's been in the playoffs twice now, 2 years now, and he's pitched very well each time. So I hope he's able to get back to that because I do like the kid. He's a guy who loves to go heavy on his changeup, which I love to see because I'm a Tom freaking Glavine fan. And I love seeing guys that aren't afraid of their changeup. But he can't locate anything, so teams are hitting like 344 against his fastball right now because they know they don't have to worry about anything else, so they just sit back and tee off on it.
Well, if you're a 2-pitch pitcher, you're a bullpen pitcher, just saying.
Well, but he's not. He's got a good slider and curveball too, but when you can't locate anything and you're just down to fastball changeup, that's a really bad 2 pitches to be stuck with.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, let's look at. I mean, with Edwin Diaz this week, he has a lower, might be lower batting average against than Joey Gallo's average. It's close.
What was his average against?
0.83.
No, Gallo's still better, but not by much. Although I have to say, Gallo versus Diaz is probably going to strike out 88 times out of 100 and fly out the other 12 times. Yeah, it's just he's not even close.
You know what, Andrew? The Braves had a bad week, but I don't know if they've had as bad a week or as bad a season as Mustard from the Guardians. He's a part of the hot dog races at the game. He is 0 for 50 this year. And the Guardians optioned him down to single A, Lake County, high A, Lake County.
Where the hell is Lake County?
I don't know.
I love it when guys do so bad they get sent that far down that we're like, single A where? He was sent where?
Lake County might actually be where, like the Geneva area of Illinois, where Schwarber got his first go of things. But the Guardians have optioned Mustard the hot dog to high A because he has lost to onion and ketchup.
That's like poor Teddy in the president's race in D.C. Didn't Teddy go the longest time without winning a race? Like I know it's scripted and whatnot where they make him lose, but good Lord, win a race.
I mean, even the Freeze lost once this year, and he almost never loses down in Atlanta.
He got obliterated, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he lost by like 10, 15 feet, and that was the guy is actually in Tomahawk Talk. His name's Nigel, really nice guy. He said, I took one look at this guy And I'm like, oh, I might be in a lot of trouble in this one. And yeah, I was in a lot of trouble in this one. Occasionally they just find that guy that I still like the guy though from 2 or 3 years ago who had him beat, looks behind to start pumping up the crowd, trips over his feet, face plants, and the freeze flies past him to win the freaking race. Dude, pump it up after you win because you're not going to win very often against that guy. His sprint time's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, he face planted like Austin Riley in the Mets series.
Yeah, you mean like most of the Braves lineup in the Mets series? It wasn't just Riley; it was most of the lineup. So hot teams for me this week, guys: Yankees, Orioles, Mets, Phillies, Cardinals, and Dodgers. Anybody to add or remove from the list?
No Braves?
No Braves.
I mean, they won a game against the Mets.
Yeah, before losing 4 others. Now, Jason, do you really want to talk about team success against the Mets this year?
I do not.
I'd say because I could pull out the season record the Phillies are having against the Mets, which is just absolutely incredible if you really want.
Nah, that's okay. We can talk about that after this next week.
Yeah, because you have DeGrom, you've got Bassett and Scherzer, so it's going to be a rough week. Anyway, so upcoming, Atlanta's on the road all week. So going along my line that I've had all year of MLB, and I understand the lockout had a lot to do with this, but MLB has a really, really effed up schedule this year. Starting with the Mets series, Atlanta does not have a day off until August. Oh, God, I don't even remember when it is. Late August. Atlanta's playing something like 15 and 14 days. And we've seen this with how many teams this year. I am so tired of seeing this. If you're going to throw these doubleheaders in, don't throw them in when teams are in these long, continuous stretches of games. It's not good for the players, and it's not good baseball overall. I sent you guys the screenshot of I want to say it was the Twins schedule after the All-Star break. That was where they somehow in the space of 4 days had to cram in 6 games. Like that shit just shouldn't happen. And I really hope we don't see it after this year and they could just say, oh, it was because of the lockout and the lost time. I really hope we don't see stuff like that again. All right, so Atlanta this week, another stupid miniseries in Boston, Morton versus Hill, Wright versus Pivetta. So, of course, Atlanta has to face probably the only 2 pitchers on the Boston staff that I can think of a name off the top of my head. And then a 4-gamer with the Marlins, which includes a day-night doubleheader. Fried versus Lopez, Odorizzi versus Luzardo, Anderson versus a pitcher to be announced later. And then Strider versus Garrett. The Cubbies this week are playing basement teams. They've got the Nationals, Thompson versus Sanchez, Stroman versus Espino, Steele versus Gray. And then the Reds, it's an odd week for the Cubs because the Field of Dreams game is Thursday, Smiley versus Lodolo. Day off Friday to travel back to Chicago because it's such a long journey from Iowa to Chicago. And then it'll be Sampson versus Ashcraft, Thompson versus Dunn. I will say I'm extremely excited for the Field of Dreams game. It's going to be an absolutely wonderful game to watch visually and everything else, just like last year. The Phillies this week, they've got the Marlins early on Wheeler versus Garrett, Syndergaard versus Alcantara. Ouch. Sorry, Jason. Gibson versus Cabrera. And then at the Mets, Suarez versus Scherzer, Nola versus DeGrom, Wheeler versus Bassett. So this is going to be, Jason, you're kind of having the week I had last week where these games really matter a lot as they're all interdivision games.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that they need to look at here is they need to not look past the Marlins to the Mets. The Marlins series here is kind of a trap series. I do think they should win 2 out of the 3. Wheeler, Garrett, and Gibson, Cabrera. Alcantara, it's tough to beat Alcantara. The Phils have done it a couple times already this season. So that's just kind of where they stand there. And then the Mets, this is why we saw the Phillies throw a couple bullpen games out of the All-Star break. It was to kind of set up their rotation so that they got to this whole getting Nola and Wheeler in here against the Mets, just to try and snag a series there. So it's not a make or break week for the Phils. It's a matter of just try and take the series against the Marlins, see if you can snag one or two against the Mets. It's not a make or break week. It's just kind of one that they need to try and get the job done.
Alcantara is 1-1 against the Phillies this year. The Marlins are 1-2 in his starts against the Phillies this year. He had one no decision. Ronald, I can't wait for the shift to be gone next year. Just putting that out there. Yeah, here's the thing with the shift, though. If players would learn how to hit for contact again and not just always go for the long ball and learn to just slap the ball the other way on an outside pitch, the shift would be gone. The shift is there because it's all about the long ball or nothing. And if players aren't even going to bother to try and hit it the other way, why not throw an extra infielder on that side? I will say this, though. I'm not a fan of the shift, so I won't be upset to see it gone. Joe, I can't wait for the Field of Dreams game, man. I wish you weren't starting Drew Smiley, but at the same time, I understand you're not going to screw the rotation up. I would have rather have seen Thompson, but, it is what it is. But that's going to be a phenomenal game to watch. I'm sure it will be just as entertaining as last year's game between the White Sox and the Yankees was. How do you think the Cubs are going to do in that one?
I don't know. I never know what my team's going to do. And with all due respect, to the Reds are a half game up on the Cubs for last place at the moment. So the Cubs are in a battle of the basement here to start the week. They're currently up 6-1 in that game tonight against the Nationals, but they're got to give credit where it's due. The Reds are not in last place at this particular moment in time.
That's fair. I actually didn't check the current standings before I said that.
It's a half game, but still, it's important.
Now, to be fair, they could be in the basement by the time the series happens.
They certainly could be, and that would be very lovely and very entertaining for me. But I mean, I expect that the Cubs will show up for that game on Thursday, and they're in Chicago for the whole week. So magic happens at Wrigley a lot of times. So we'll see what happens there. I'm just looking at what our young guys do in performance wise. I think if he's still on the roster by the end of the weekend, that would be surprising. Would be our favorite, a fan favorite, Frank Schwindel will probably be gone, I think, in the next week or so. Just not producing it. And Rivas was sent down too. With the addition of McKinstry from the Dodgers, they have a few times here this week, they've put Wisdom at first and McKinstry at third. So testing some of that out to see what they can do there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just looking ahead at the schedule, the next special game will be the Little League game, which is played at Bowman Field in Williamsport. That is Sunday, August 21st. That will be between the Red Sox and the Orioles. So that'll be a good time as well. All right, guys. Any other series you're watching for this week?
Yeah, I was looking at the early series this week, and there weren't a whole lot that really stood out. There's Giants, Padres, but the one that I'm kind of looking at early in the week, Blue Jays are in Baltimore in a pretty big series as far as wild card implications are concerned. The Orioles did take game one tonight, so that's a big win there. And then later this week, I was looking through them, and the one that I will be keeping track of is going to be Brewers in St. Louis against the Cardinals. Again, big division and even wildcard implications there. I'm at the point now where I'm starting to really pull for the Brewers to lose, kind of get those teams dropping off from the wild card chase and kind of cement our teams up in there. So those are the two that I'm kind of looking at this week.
Plus, let's face it, I don't think even if the Brewers would somehow miraculously take a wild card spot or somehow take the division, which I don't see happening, it's the same team as last year. They don't have enough offense to survive in the playoffs. Atlanta exposed that last year, and they did nothing in the offseason to address it, and they've still done nothing at the trade deadline to address it, but they sent their closer away. Yeah, good job, guys. Joe, any other series for you?
The Yankees have the Mariners, I think, the early part of this week, so that could be interesting for the Mariners. Can they put a run together again? The Orioles have the Rays in the weekend series, so what could happen there for the Orioles? I'm going to be following Mets Phillies a lot this weekend. I'm going to be following the Field of Dreams game on Thursday, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I can't wait for the Field of Dreams game. I love that. I really hope Manfred gets on during the game and says, hey, by the way, we're going to extend this for like another 50 years, because that would just be absolutely amazing. I love watching that game.
If it's anything like the game last year, it will definitely be getting extended, because last year's game was absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Who would have thought homers in the 8th, homers in the 9th to walk it off? Just absolutely beautiful. That's the kind of baseball that is just so entertaining to watch. And frankly, we mentioned it last year, and I know we're going to mention it again next week. Baseball does such a good job putting on these special events. They need to do it a little bit more, and they really need to just advertise the crap out of this, get as many people watching as they can, because these are the kind of games and the kind of places that will help keep bringing in young fans to watch the game. Plus, because let's face it, the older fans, they're not going anywhere. It's the young fans they need to draw in.
I don't know that they need to do it more, because I think if you do it more times throughout the season, it's going to lose the luster and that special feeling of having it once a year. I do agree that they need to advertise it more just to get that game out there. But as far as doing more of them, I don't know that we necessarily need that.
They only do 2. And it's 162 game season, so multiply that by 30 teams. I think they could maybe do like even just one a month. Maybe not during July when they do the All-Star break, but maybe one a month. I don't think that would be excessive. I don't think it would water it down. I get what you're saying, but I don't think adding a couple more would water that pull down significantly.
Yeah, because we definitely don't want it to become just so common that people are like, there's going to be another one of these. I'll watch that one. So I'm fine with just having the couple there.
Ooh, that's a good idea, Ron. I like that. A full series instead of just one game at the Field of Dreams. Instead of more games, I'd be okay with a full series in Iowa. That would be really neat to see.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of think of it, even look at the outdoor classics that you see in the NHL. People love the outdoor hockey, but they've started adding so many of the stadium series that people are kind of like, it takes away from the outdoor classic. So yeah, I would be hesitant to add more, because I think they would lose their luster.
How about like one game down in Puerto Rico and maybe one game in Mexico City? Just spitballing ideas out there, just because that'd be what, 4 special games a year. And let's face it, Puerto Rico especially has a very rich baseball heritage, and they already have a well-built stadium that can handle major league games, as we found out when the Expos were flirting with where they're going to move to many, many, many years ago before they went to Washington. Just my thought. It would be nice to see.
And I think, aren't they adding a London series?
Next year, it's the Cubs and Cardinals for that.
Yeah. So, I mean, they are
Okay.
starting to add more. So, I mean, I really don't think I would do much more than that.
I don't necessarily. I agree with you, Jason. I think that the more hockey they've added, the more outdoor games they've added for the NHL. It's New Year's Day outdoor hockey had a special feel to it, and now it's overdone. Um, I think you have the Field of Dreams game or another. If you alternate it with somebody else for every other year, you have the Little League game there in Williamsport, and that one's going to drag more young fans in than the Field of Dreams game is. The Field of
Yeah.
Dreams game is more for guys like us and older who grew
Yeah.
up on the movie and have that, who still tear up when it says, "Hey, you want to have a catch?"
Yeah.
Can we have Kevin Costner in the booth again?
Well, and I think, and the thing with the Little League game is that game is only open to the kids that are participating in the Little League World Series and their families. So I think that one is special, and I agree, Joe. That one is the one that would bring in a lot of the younger fans because, like, oh my gosh, I love playing baseball, I love Little League, and here these professionals are playing at the Little League World Series. So yeah, I like a Field of Dreams game or series, a Little League World Series game. Keep it special.
Fair enough. I will say the other thing about Mexico and Puerto Rico is you could do it as one-off games. London, you have to do a full series because that's extensive travel in and out. But at least Mexico City and Puerto Rico would be close enough to do a one-off instead. All right, guys, you can find the audio recordings on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Amazon Music, and Spreaker. You can see us live on our YouTube channel, on Facebook Live, and on Twitter. You can find our merchandise at redbubble.com/people/DDAB-podcast. Follow us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/dollardogsandbeer, on our Twitter page at DDAB_podcast. You can find all three of us on Twitter. I'm at PyroLord314, Jason's at JRicker300, and Joe is at JoltonJoe35. We are presented by Dark Arrow Podcast, LLC, and we are sponsored by the amazing Whiskey and Blade Barbershop in Lidditz. Johnny, you might not have wanted to trade Gallo, although, as I pointed out, that stat's also absolutely irrelevant. Guys, may your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. Have a good night, everybody.